Ariel Cohen is a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, joins us live from Washington, D.C. And Mr. Cohen, if I could start with you, what do you make of this tough talk at the White House? One attack launched by President Trump, the other by Vice President J.D. Vance, and President Zelensky not ceding an inch.
First of all, I think this is not the way to conduct negotiations. This is a break with every tenet of diplomacy we're aware of, maybe from the 17th or 18th century. And doing this sensitive engagement with the cameras rolling, either it was incompetence or it was done on purpose. Secondly, I advise companies and leaders on strategic communications. I would have advised President Zelensky not to engage, not to answer, and whatever he had to say behind closed doors. In an open forum like that, he should have answered the media questions, not engaged with J.D. Vance, who was clearly hostile, and then he kept answering President Trump when the best thing he could have done was to shut up. But more broadly, this is a historic moment in which the United States not only appears to abandon Ukraine, but it appears to enter in a historic confrontation with our European NATO allies and side with Russia, as we saw in the United Nations. Unprecedented political development that raises questions about the future global architecture for the world.
President Zelensky perhaps should have realized if Trump wants that deal, and he spoke of it, America has oil, America has gas, America does not have rare earth minerals. If that deal could have come, guarantees would have automatically followed with American soldiers or American civilians and workers on ground. Russia clearly couldn't have attacked, except that would also mean, Mr. Cohen, losing Zaporozhye and Kherson apart from Donetsk and Luhansk.
No, of course, a lot of these rare earth minerals and strategic minerals, which is a different story because strategic are lithium and aluminum and uranium and copper and chromium and all the things that are not rare earth per se. But the question is, you're asking absolutely right. Was Zelensky in a position to sell the United States Ukrainian minerals that are now under the Russian occupation? And I don't think anybody is that silly. But there was another aspect there. The total market, the global market of rare earth, of the lanthanoids that are used in aerospace and computers and semiconductors, $3.5 billion. Yes. Trump is saying, oh, we gave you $350 billion. It probably, he exaggerates by a factor of 2. But regardless, 65% of mining, 85% of refining are in China, not in Ukraine, not in America. Yes. So what? It would have taken 500 years for the United States to recoup these investments and support in Ukraine. What are we talking about here? So my argument is either it was a huge mistake by Zelensky, and with all the respect to the professor, I would not call him a clown. He got elected. He conducted the war. He is a leader of his people. He's still very popular in Ukraine, by the way. And he is an embattled, elected leader. In terms of President Trump, he has a very different view of American foreign policy than anybody since the end of World War II until the end of the Biden presidency. He does not see the Euro-Atlantic alliance as the core need and the core pillar of American security. In that respect, he's somewhat of an isolationist, and there's a lot of people who are China hawks who say, let the Europeans take care of themselves. We need to focus on Indo-Pacific and China, and this is where India is so important for the United States.
Let me get Ariel Cohen to respond to this. Does Europe have stomach for a fight to sustain this fight without the United States of America contribute money, material warlike stores or even commit men on ground, sir?
Europe doesn't have a choice. Either it's going to disintegrate as a coherent Western alliance because the United States is going to be engaged elsewhere, either in Indo-Pacific vis-a-vis China, or just withdraw into the Western hemisphere and become even more isolationist and abandon the Pacific. Could be that. But Europe has a choice. Either with the German leadership, it will need to rebuild its defenses. Germany, France, and UK, plus others. And Poland, very important. Poland, Germany, UK, and France. 2 nuclear powers, soon 3, because Germany is actively thinking about becoming a nuclear power.
Okay.
With the GDP that is going to be 7 times bigger than Russia. Of course, they could do it if they had a political will, which right now they probably don't have.
Would they, with MERS likely to take over in your view?
Just let me finish one point about Ukraine allegedly run out of people. Yes, the personnel situation is dire, but given enough technology, given more drones, given more missiles, Ukraine can inflict very serious damage, and it's inflicting serious damage, for example, to the Russian refineries, and the Russian production of gasoline is going down. As to what Russia intended to do, of course it intended to take Kiev in 3 days. The Russian spokespeople said it in February 2022. Russia, in the ultimatum of December of 2021, demanded full American and NATO withdrawal to the NATO posture of 1997, meaning all of Eastern Europe, Poland, you name it. So Russia was aiming to shift the balance of power in Europe and therefore in Eastern Hemisphere.
In fact, Tatiana, I was reporting from Kiev when the war started, and in the first phase of the war, Russian tanks had come inside, or virtually at the outskirts of Kiev, when suddenly the Javelin missiles that President Trump refers to, there was a massive attack of those Javelin missiles. Ukrainian forces were really fighting hard. Russian teeth came in, the tail did not follow, the tanks were out of fuel, and they had to go back. We reported that on ground. Ariel Cohen, do you see this as President Zelensky now piping down, realizing things had gone horribly out of control? He always knew he couldn't carry on this fight without American weapons and support. The game of brinkmanship, he's blinked?
In my book, he misread who President Trump is. He misread the geopolitical priorities of the Trump administration. He made a huge mistake, both in communication and in pushing his points too far, and he did not paddle back enough. He needed to apologize. I know several people in whose opinion he should have made an apology to Trump. He needs to understand the global pecking order, at least how Mr. Trump perceives it. Mr. Trump is on top, and President Zelensky is lower than Mr. Trump. And he needed to communicate that tonight on Fox. He missed that opportunity. And as long as he is not rebuilding the relationship, and honestly, I'm not sure if he can. I don't know if he's going to resign or call new elections or do something else. But Europe by itself, in and of itself, does not have the military-industrial capacity to supply to Ukraine what Ukraine needs to at least continue fighting Russia to a stalemate in such a way that Russia will agree to a peace that is acceptable to Ukraine. And secondly, without the United States, security guarantees are not possible. And clearly, Mr. Trump is not willing to articulate what kind of security guarantees he is willing to provide. And Europe did not specify if it can, or it didn't say that it can send at least 10 brigades with a nuclear umbrella that are necessary to keep Ukrainian security intact in the future.
Well, Europe was never at the table. Neither was Ukraine.
Yes.
From the very get-go. This conversation is going to be between President Trump and President Putin. And let me remind you that Russia does have rare minerals that it can sell, not give, what Ukraine would have done, but sell, which is a very different position. If you understand, what I mean. And I do believe that this conversation has just gotten very, very much more interesting. But let's make one thing very clear. We're talking here about, and Mr. Cohen, who is more delusional than President Zelensky, is talking about an actual nuclear conflict in Europe between Russia and European nations.
Okay.
And it's not just, just that. He actually thinks that Poland
Professor Cohen
is
and Professor Latham, Mr. Cohen and Professor Latham want to come in quickly, 30 seconds each. Ariel Cohen, go on, sir.
First of all, if panelists are going to engage in personal insults, especially Russian propagandists who are lying into our faces, I'm going to leave. But I wanted to make a point about nuclear guarantees. We have nuclear guarantees in Korea, and the Ukrainian ceasefire is not unlike what happened in 1953 in Korea. There was a ceasefire. It lasts now for almost 70 years, more than 70 years, and there are American nuclear guarantees. I do not see why we cannot have that between the United States and Russia, or between the United States and NATO, because in 1994, let me finish, in 1994, Russia was party to the Budapest Protocol that guaranteed security of Ukraine, and there was a peace treaty, treaty of eternal friendship, signed between President Yeltsin and President Kuchma, and then another treaty. So there were 3 treaties that Russia guaranteed: territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine, and it tore it apart and threw it in the garbage.